Good day, everyone. Hello, Professor Venkat. First of all, thanks to the chairs for the opportunity to participate in this session, celebrating Professor Venkat's intellectual contributions to process systems engineering, chemical engineering, and beyond. I'm sorry that I'm not able to attend in person due to the current circumstances, but happy that the chairs for this session offered this arrangement to share a few of my slides and associated talks. Following my earlier request, Professor Raghunathan Rangaswamy kindly agreed to present at the session on my behalf. However, a recent email from the conference organizers indicated that suitable audio-visual facility will be available at the session to play recorded videos, and so I have recorded my talk. To me, the title of the Renaissance man aptly fits Venkat. We all know about his work in artificial intelligence, fault detection and diagnosis, machine learning, risk management, etc. But he has other dimensions, including a deep love for and high ability in Tamil language, his knowledge of Tamil spiritual literature, his ability to connect recent Tamil movie songs to ancient literature and discuss them in public forums. I had the opportunity to listen to a live public event in his hometown Chennai, India in December 2019 and at another online event about 6 months later. He has the ability to connect mathematical modeling to spirituality and make them reach the layperson. His sense of humor and the depth of his spiritual personality shows up in almost every conversation I've had with him. He can enjoy and talk from the classics to the contemporary, be it in literature, food, music, and other things. When he was in Singapore about 2 years ago, my wife and I had many interesting conversations with him. He can discuss the intricacies of Carnatic music or cooking with the same passion and authority as much as he can about artificial intelligence or statistical teleodynamics. In this slide, you can see some photographs of Professor Venkat discussing Hindu spirituality and its relationship to mathematical thinking, his presence at a popular, well-attended public event exploring connections between movie songs of poet Kannadasan and spiritual literature of Tamil saints and mathematics. And at the same event, Venkat received a honorific title from a fellow AIChE chemical engineering alumni. And on the bottom right, you can see Venkat discussing about Carnatic music with my wife Subha over traditional South Indian coffee. Venkat has a zest for life and appreciates the goodness in everything from the simple to the sophisticated. He is curious and open to new experiences and maintains strong connections to his roots despite all the success and accolades that have come his way and having lived abroad for about 40 years. While at Singapore, Venkat did not hesitate to experiment with the local vegetarian delights. He also fondly talked about a small shop near his birthplace home at Chennai, which served something called rose milk, called Rose Bandung in Singapore. He talked about it very highly, so much so that I tasted it in December 2019, and boy, he was right. There was a certain taste and flavor to that rose milk. In my interactions with Venkat, I have found him to be a very keen listener as much as a compelling speaker that he is. His ability and willingness to listen has very likely made it easy for him to connect seemingly disparate things and examine the underlying structures and commonalities. These have been the key to his contributions across various knowledge domains. I have had the opportunity to know and work with some of Venkat's former students who by now are among the top contributors to the process systems engineering area. Raghunathan Rangaswamy and Rajagopalan Srinivasan and some of their students, Hiranmayi Vedam and Santoji Kathare. Professor Venkat has an amazing intellectual family that has made several unique and impactful contributions to process systems engineering. I am in awe of not only Venkat's work, but also of his first and second generation students. I first came to know about Professor Venkat sometime in early 1980s when he was featured in the meat section of a very reputed national newspaper, The Hindu in India. That article spoke about his interest and work in artificial intelligence, and it made a lot of sense to me, even though I was not a chemical engineering student by then. My PhD at the University of Alberta, Canada, under Professors Sirish Shah and Nandakumar on fault detection and diagnosis using multivariate statistics kept me close to the fine but different approach Venkat and his students were pursuing at Purdue. Given all this, it is surprising that it took about 35 years for me to have the first email exchange with Venkat, and it happened due to some fortunate circumstances. At NUS, I was in a position to invite top academics from around the world to the newly formed interdisciplinary living and learning residential colleges in our university town. Around the same time, Professor Venkat's book, How Much Inequality is Fair? Mathematical Principles of a Moral, Optimal and Stable Capitalist Society was published by Columbia University Press in 2017. His book considered a problem that is frequently debated around the world and more recently in Singapore, as there is significant worry about the widening gap between the haves and the have-nots. Professor Venkat's book provided a refreshing socio-math lens to view this problem, and I thought it could be scaled down appropriately to work for a sophomore level class at the college. In-your senior management invited Professor Venkat to be the Nian Kongsi Distinguished Visiting Professor for a couple of months, and to our delight, Professor Venkat agreed. The course was an intellectually stimulating one, and the students enjoyed it tremendously. Professor Venkat's public lecture on the same topic was very well received. Those 8 weeks helped me work closely and interact often with the Renaissance man, and my earlier remarks are born out of such experiences. In his book and in his 2009 paper published in Entropy, which I read next, Venkat brought together concepts from statistical mechanics, information theory, and the principle of maximum entropy to come up with an elegant approach to the question of fair income distribution in large organizations. Given that the income for members of a large organization cannot be the same because of the varied job descriptions, the question he asked is, what is a fair, unequal distribution of salaries? His work showed how pay distribution would settle into a log normal distribution, and he used data from several countries to show how some countries have managed to achieve well-conditioned pay structures while other countries have done increasingly poorly over the years. Very importantly, his work has provided at least one meaning to the concept of entropy in the field of economics. Entropy is shown to be a measure of fairness in the context of income distribution and resource allocation, permitting analytical economists to come to terms with entropy. In a 2018 paper published in IECR by Veligol et al., Venkat's work is cited as having provided a valuable insight of entropy as fairness. Venkat has neatly articulated that it may be counterproductive to look at one-to-one correspondences between chemical systems and social systems, and fairness is a better way of describing entropy rather than the popular notions of disorder, randomness, or uncertainty. This work by Venkat clearly establishes a deep interconnection between game theory, statistical thermodynamics, information theory, and economics. My co-author, an ardent cricket fan, was curious to see how Venkat's findings might apply to players who are drafted into the Indian Premier League, IPL. So, here is an analysis done by her on the compensation that players received at the most recent IPL. The sample size is small, just 141 compared to what the theory is developed for, but we would believe that the players are paid according to their value. In the table that is shown here, the symbol psi denotes the level of non-ideal inequality in the system. Psi is equal to 0 would indicate fair inequality, and when its magnitude is large, the inequality is extreme and unfair. Analysis shows that the bottom 90% of the players get a smaller share of the IPL pie than would be considered fair. You can see the psi value is minus 26.97%. In fact, out of the 141 players, 19% of them, that is 27 of them, are paid minimum wages. A disproportionate share goes to the top 1 to 10% of the players. I also analyzed income data publicly available for 4 of the universities located in Ontario, Canada. Sample sizes are much better here, and analysis showed that University of Toronto, Western University, and University of Waterloo had the same spread of salaries, while Carleton University had the lowest spread as well as a lower mean salary. Western University and U Waterloo had almost identical means as well. Understandably, University of Toronto had a higher average salary, perhaps a combination of the location and reputation effect. I also did further analysis of the data, and I provide information on 2 of them. I shall not name them specifically, but here are the results of the analysis. In both the universities, this is one of the universities, this is the other one. In both of these universities, analysis showed that the top 1% had a hugely disproportionate salary. In raw terms, it would look like the top 1% takes in about 2.7% of the salary, but in comparison with the ideal that is indicated by Professor Venkat's fair market theory, the top 1% is wonderfully placed. More analysis is needed, but the corporatization of publicly funded universities seem to have taken hold. So in the first university, the top 1% has a psi value of 1,159%, while in the other university it is 1,200%. In both the universities, the bottom 90% of the faculty and staff have a psi value of about minus 9 to 10%. And in the first university, the top 1% is dominated by business school faculty, particularly finance, strategic management, as one would expect, university president, and asset management corporation folks. In the second university, the top 1% is dominated by deans and members of the university senior management. Again, no surprises there. Another idea that I'm exploring is in the grade distribution for individual courses and the distribution of cumulative grade point average students obtain at the time of their graduation. NUS's grading policy imposes constraints, something like overall resource constraints as well as constraints for each of the letter grades. Initial results are promising, but there is still some way to go before we can reliably share our findings. But I am working on extending Professor Venkat's theory as well as the applications into areas related to education. One of the things we have done at NUS is designing learning analytics dashboards and nudging systems so that students engage with the learning materials more effectively. One of Professor Venkat's work that I show here, a 1/3 advice rule based on a control theoretic opinion dynamics model, published in IEEE Transactions on Computational Social Systems in 2019, provides a theoretical basis to the empirical observation that we shift our initial decision by only 30% towards external advice after the advice is provided. Besides the simple elegance of their model, the work makes an important point that it helps for the decision maker to know the dispersion of the crowd opinion in addition to the mean value. We have incorporated these findings in our course recommendation systems and for nudging students towards completing assignments, watching course videos, etc. As teachers and as administrators, the central role we play in universities is that of change management. Venkat's 2016 PLOS One paper titled Soft Regulation with Crowd Recommendation, Coordinating Self-Interested Agents in Socio-Technical Systems under Imperfect Information, sheds light on how soft control combined with soft learning helps agents to make optimal decisions in systems where imperfect, noisy information is available to a large number of weakly interacting agents, each possessing bounded rationality. In this paper, proofs are offered for the optimality and simulations show the robustness and efficiency of the system. Personally, I think the findings of this paper have implications for change management in organizations as well as in matters like brand or ideology adoption. We are looking into these aspects as well. In the interest of time, let me conclude. I am one of the several thousands of people that have benefited from Venkat's research work and in the way he relates to people and their ideas. May God bless Venkat with several more decades of happy, healthy, and intellectually stimulating life. Take a bow, Professor Venkat.